Dragons. Undoubtedly the most iconic creature in the franchise, perhaps the ultimate fantasy creature. They are bigger, they are stronger, and they are probably smarter than your average adventurer. They also get visually redesigned once in a while their stat blocks remain the same, and that is not living up to any form of hype. So, let's take a look at why the Bileblood Tyrant is built different. Designing a dragon in concept is easy. Just choose an elemental affinity, some kind of shiny rock or metal, or just any vague concept really, as the idea of a dragon does the rest. So the real challenge lies in translating this into inspiring stats and fun gameplay, and that's where most dragons fall short. Even or especially the ancient dragons are just bigger piles of hit points. Their elemental identity has been modularized into an afterthought, and they are fighting the same way in round 1 as they do in round 10, which is losing their luster as the promise of grandeur fades into repetition. It's Halloween, and I wanted to make a cool black dragon, so this one is built around acid, corrosion, and decay, because that's just how colors work, I'm sorry. And because it's Halloween, it wears the skull of another dragon, whose flesh it melted right off its bones. And to do that, its acid must be very powerful indeed, which is a fact that will also come to bite it in the scaled ass. Because at first, everything is as you would expect. We have claws, we have wings, we have acid breath, the classics of a dragon fight, just with more of everything to keep it interesting. But once it's bloodied, everything changes. It loses hit points at the start of each of its turns, as well when it's using legendary actions and a new, more devastating breath weapon. And oozing bloodbile, bones tearing through skin, its legendary resistances suddenly gain a second purpose, as it can burn one to keep its body together, just a little longer. Maybe just long enough to see what dire consequences this seething bile blood has for the players. Any acid damage they take reduces their maximum hit points, killing and dissolving them instantly when reduced to 0. And I know what you are thinking, but stay with me because this is where the whole logic of the fight kind of flips. At first, the players are racing against the dragon, kill it before it kills them, classic. But once it's bloodied, the dragon is actually racing against them. So the players may realize they don't need to kill it fast, they need to last long enough to let it become a victim of its own physique. So the rhythm changes. They are prompted to invest resources into avoiding the creature rather than confronting it, stalling for time as the tyrant gets increasingly reckless, desperate, and lethal. It knows it's dying and it needs to end the encounter fast to enter a comatose sleep where it can claw its way back from total ruin. So you can see this death spiral forming, and this storytelling through design. The dragon's grandeur collapses into frenzy as the players need to outlast the death throes of a dissolving god beast. A clear-cut two-phase challenge that evolves over time while also delivering badass visuals. So now both sides are running out of time as every turn brings everyone involved closer to total dissolution and instant death. Doesn't that sound a little bit unfair? No, and I'll tell you why. I'm not a cruel DM. I don't get off on power fantasies or punishing players. But we are on the highest tier of play, and that brings us to something most designers like to forget, and that is death itself can and must be treated as a status condition. And what do I mean by that? Simply put, every condition in D&D limits the action economy. On lower levels, we have fear or poison, limiting your mobility or combat efficiency, but providing ways to mitigate that. As we go higher, we encounter stuns, paralyzation, petrification, conditions with more devastating impact on the action economy, as they flat out remove players from initiative while also forcing the others to adapt their tactics, as the affected players are helpless and easy prey. And corresponding to the tiers of play, players gain access to ways to mitigate these effects. Starting with protection from poison or disease, over to lesser restoration, finally greater restoration and the like. and with Revivify, even death can be overcome mid-combat. Finally, on the highest tier of play, death is a valid way of crowd control, as the players have or should have the tools to deal with it, like a low-level party has or should have the tools to deal with poison or fear effects. Your opinion, and especially your player's opinion on this, may vary, and that is totally valid. And the scythe has to be swung meticulously and with intent, as this ultimate danger should be telegraphed. Because in this case, a mid-battle resurrection fails when the resurrected is just a puddle of goo that you try to reassemble somehow. In this case, you watch the dragon itself getting torn apart by its bile blood, and you get a decent amount of time before your maximum hit points actually hit 0. But should someone finally dissolve, it's not arbitrary, it is earned. And if you're still on the fence about this, let me show you where high-level encounter design really shines. The path towards dissolution doesn't have to start in the fight. At tier 4, the battle usually exists in the player's minds long before initiative is rolled. So fights like this usually aren't sprung on the players as a surprise. So there has been foreshadowing and build-up to maximize the impact of the actual encounter on a narrative level. Good build-up doesn't just make a story better, it changes how the fight plays. Allowing players to prepare for a fight gives meaning to earlier challenges without sapping energy from the actual encounter. Anything they do to prepare for the fight is practically already part of the fight. The tension is building long before actually initiative is rolled, and the dragon they know about, the one they're preparing to face, looms in their minds the entire time. And that's why you can then make the final encounter shorter and sharper and still just as epic, intense and rewarding. To keep the actual fight juicy and entertaining, you do the legwork before. And the actual focus now is on the abilities derived from this looming concept they interacted with the whole time, turning the boss into the physical manifestation of the greater challenge that had to be overcome for much-deserved catharsis. So we cut time from the actual encounter to prevent players from becoming too burnt out by the length of an epic encounter to actually enjoy it. But we do leave in the juicy bits. We give it a lot of different actions without too much synergy between them to make it as simple as possible for the DM, while also keeping things visually interesting and distract the players from the fact that they're just doing math. And that's another thing the official dragons fail to do, and let me give you an example how to avoid this. I am not a fan of giving monsters innate spellcasting. I get why people do it, it makes sense on different levels. I do it sometimes. Players already know what Fireball does. They have seen Cloudkill or Melv's Acid Arrow. What they probably haven't seen is a black dragon's skin melting off due to its blood turning to acid, laying bare its skeletal tail that it then uses to impale a barbarian. Of course, an ancient red dragon knows Fireball, but the players know Fireball. What they don't know is what an ancient red dragon can do with fire that is not basically the same than a level 5 sorcerer can do, just with more dice. It's not interesting, it doesn't tell us anything, it's just math and bookkeeping at this point. As any creature should, the Bileblood Tyrant tells its own story over the course of the encounter. Visually striking, mechanically engaging. And as I always preach, that's what a great encounter should do, match its mechanical depth to its narrative promise. If you can't wait to run this skull-helmed nightmare, you will find everything you need in the Token Tactical Guide, which is a turn-by-turn guide laying every ability, trigger and effect out in the open, as well as our immersive integration, which includes narrative story hooks, foreshadowing events, and read-aloud prompts for almost all of the creature's abilities ready to go, ready to install with minimal prep time. Also head over to Beneos Battle Maps, grab a few boss-worthy maps, which are all of them, and then let me know how everything went. This is a loyalty token. Every month, patrons who have been subscribed for at least 1 month and thus show continuous support are rewarded for their unwavering loyalty with an additional release, free of charge as a special thank you. Thank you. If that makes you mad or sad, you'll be happy instead to know that this kind of thought and care goes into every of our over 200 monster releases that you gain access to as a patron. There's a new one coming every week, it's fully integrated into Foundry, it's insane how much you get out of this patron and how little you have to actually do except forking over some cold hard cash. As always, let me compel you to leave a like or share this video with your DM, as small creators like us benefit immensely from any kind of support. Thank you very much, take good care, and see you with the next release.